You have to draw a line in the sand. You have to build some boundaries.
Maybe I'm not the right one for it.
I'm to a point where I don't want to try anymore.
You are hurting yourself. This is something we see regularly.
What is someone in your life fighting for? And how can you be there for them? All right, Joe, I have a couple of other questions for you. I'm trying to figure out which one to say first because we only have 8 minutes left.
Oh.
So, this is the one I'm going to go with. I know I haven't prepped you for this question.
I hate it when it starts like that.
But what are some signs that a marriage is over?
I don't know that you have signs that a marriage is over.
Okay.
Now, there's some absolutes. Now, this is going to sound silly, but just stay with me. Obviously, if your spouse dies, the marriage is over. And no, don't react. If your spouse has divorced you, the marriage is not necessarily over. I divorced my wife back in, more than 30 years ago, and we were divorced for 3 years, and then we remarried each other. Neither one of us was married to anybody in the interim. And so the fact that you're divorced does not necessarily mean your marriage is over. But if either of us had married somebody else in the meantime, then it definitely would have been over. Alice, as a matter of fact, had already moved on and started dating other people because, we were divorced 3 years, and she had every right to do that. So what then would be it? Well, like I just said, spouse dies, spouse marries somebody else. You say, but what about, isn't there ever a time when even if my spouse hasn't married somebody else, I know that it's time just to stop, that it's no longer reasonable to stand for this marriage anymore? And I would say, yeah. We talk about this in these terms. People don't leave what they have unless they believe what they're going to is better. So if your spouse is leaving you for another person, he or she in his or her mind sees that other person as being better. I'm not saying the other person is better. I'm saying that's their perception. I know that hurts, but you also know that that's true. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing it. Or if they see being without you as being better than being with you. Like, for example, if you're mean, if you're controlling, if you're dominating, then they might even see being alone as being better than being with you. Do you follow? You say, well, does either of those things mean that the marriage is necessarily over? No. But look at the flip side of that same principle. Whenever you realize that the marriage being over is better than standing for the marriage, is the time when you need to move on. You say, what do you mean? Okay, now understand this is a judgment call, and you need not to make it like that. As a matter of fact, you may need some good and wise counsel from people who are objective, not people who are prejudiced towards you or prejudiced against your spouse. So, for example, a guy told me not long ago that his wife not only has abandoned him and his children, but she's now going to these sex clubs and she's going regularly. Regularly, where she's having sex with a lot of different people every night that she goes, men and women. And this has been going on for some period of time, and she's saying to him, you could never replicate that. That's now what I live for, that kind of a sexual thrill. Now, does that mean she can't be rescued? Not necessarily means that. But he finally came to the realization on his own that, no, she's now into things that I think for the sake of my children and me, it's better that we move on without her because she's continuing to degrade. Now, they are divorced. She hasn't married any of those people and probably won't because she's having too much fun, if you let me use that word, doing what she's doing. But he came to the realization that okay, being without you is better than being with you because I don't think you're going to change. I've now become convinced that you're going to stay like that, and that's not healthy for our children, not healthy for me, obviously not healthy for you, but now it's time for me to move on. Other situations could be the person still threatens you physically. Like beats you up. A couple I know several years ago, she divorced him after he, the second time, left her for dead. Should have been after the first time, in my opinion. But things like that, you look at it and go, I'm not standing for this anymore. It's now time to move on because this is too destructive. It's too dangerous. It's too debilitating. It's too disgusting. I can't live like that anymore. So another way of saying it is this. If your spouse is still a good person at heart, maybe you should still try to rescue him or her. But once you become convinced that whatever good heart your spouse may have once had has now become hardened, dark, maybe even evil, but at least dark and hardened, then maybe that's when you realize, I can't change him or her back to the person he or she was before. I don't see any hope for that left. Judgment call? Absolutely, it's a judgment call. That's why I suggest you talk to professionals. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. Your friends and family may not be able to give you the best advice here because they're prejudiced against that person and prejudiced toward you. A marriage counselor may not give you good advice here because he or she may have been trained, I just need to make you happy right now. But somebody who really fights for marriages, somebody like us. Now, we'll never tell you it's time for you to divorce. I must understand. But we can help you think that through and come to the realization on your own. We won't tell you. But if you talk to somebody like our organization, we're pro-marriage. And if we say, I understand why you would make that decision, I don't blame you, then you can pretty well be assured that if one of our folks says that, the other person's heart is like this. But even then, it's your decision. We're not God. We could be wrong.
Absolutely. So some of the things you will notice we did not say about when can you tell the signs that a marriage is over, we don't say if there's an affair. We have seen so many marriages saved when there's been an affair involved, even when there's been separation, when divorce has been filed, even when divorce has happened, we have still seen those marriages be saved. I'm trying to think of other common situations, even if there's an addiction going on. We've seen people get help for those addictions and to come back and to save their marriage. Even in situations where one spouse is extremely controlling and you don't think they would ever change, we've seen those spouses change. We've seen the marriage come back together. So if you search the internet, a lot of times you will see people say, well, the signs of marriage are over when you're no longer happy, or when your spouse is no longer happy with you, when you can't resolve your fights, when your spouse is having an affair, when they've had an affair multiple times, then your marriage is over. We've seen all of those situations be saved. And so we do have hope for your marriage. We have hope for all the marriages we work with until something happens that is unmistakably that person's decision to say, I'm moving on. This is me ending my stand. We're going to support that person until they get to that point, and sometimes even beyond that.
Yeah, if we can. And so one thing we've implied, but let me say specifically, if you are in jeopardy, and you realize if you get back with that person, you will continue to be in jeopardy.
Yeah.
Now, I've implied that in what I said earlier, but I'm going to make that point. Like, well, my husband molested my daughter, and I'm afraid if I bring my husband back into the home, even though he says he'll never do it again, I fear for my daughter's safety. That don't put it back together.
Right.
We don't want to put anybody in jeopardy. If he's beating you up and he hasn't gotten the right help for that, or if she's beating you up and hasn't gotten the right help, and if they do get the right help, there's still a way to do this gradually so you can see if the person really is past that or not. But don't put yourself in jeopardy.
Yeah, absolutely. We're here for you however we can be. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can also find us on Facebook. You can type in Marriage Helper, like our page. You can listen to our podcast that we have on Marriage Radio. You can find that on iTunes and on Google Play. So whether you're Apple or Android, we want to make everyone happy. We are bipartisan here. So we enjoy getting your questions. Be sure to email those to live@marriagehelper.com, and you can always give us a call. We are here every day of the week from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Central Time. Leave a voicemail. Someone will get back in touch with you, and you can call us at 866-903-0990. We can answer your questions about coaching, about our workshops, about our online courses, or about if you just say, hey, I can't find you on iTunes, we can help you with that as well. We look forward to hearing from you, and we can't wait to see you again next Monday. Have a great week.
Yep.